to find it unconstitutional. But they were going to find ways to try to block it anyway. We've been talking about that we need to have IDs ever since the last election. Well, not the last election, but the last presidential election, 2000. We conservatives have been seriously talking about it since then, because we know that there was a bunch of votes that were not legal for Obama. As a matter of fact, a bunch of people, especially those working with Acorn and other liberal so-called civic political groups, got caught up in the investigations. Some of those people went to court on criminal charges, and some of them were convicted, and some of them were fined, and some of them were or sent to jail. So whenever anybody says, well, we don't have any evidence of voter fraud, you want to make a bet. How about all the Acorn cases all over the country? Yes, there is voter fraud, and we on the right have been talking about it at least since then. And we have said it has been necessary. It's necessary. Plain and simple. And now they want to tell us, well, it's going to cause some chaos. Oh, bullpucky. Isn't going to cause any chaos. They just know what's going to happen. This is the end. In many states, this is the end for easy voter fraud. And they're trying to delay it until after this election so they can get Obama and a few other liberal Democrats elected. Not going to be easy for them to do. Well, all they need is a sympathetic court. Now, the South Carolina, it is the second recent ruling by a federal judicial panel weighing the legality of new voter ID laws under provision in the Voter Rights Act. A three-judge court in August struck down a Texas voter ID measure, saying it would impose strict, unforgiving burdens on minorities. Yeah, that they would have to get legal ID. The South Carolina law passed last year requires voters to present one of 5 forms of photo identification to cast a ballot. A South Carolina's driver's license, a state-issued photo ID, a passport, a military ID, or a new form of free photo card obtained from the county election office. Let me repeat that. The official voter IDs that you can use that will be eligible to say that you are a legitimate South Carolina voter is a South Carolina's driver's license. Now, South Carolina doesn't knowingly allow illegals to get driver's license, I don't think. So there you go. That's a good thing. A state-issued photo ID, which is usually a non-driver's ID card. Most states have those. Because people, if they lose their license, some people, they drink too much and they lose their license because they drinky drivey, but they still want to get their drinking on. Well, they need an ID. They can use a passport, which is, federal ID. They can use a military ID. Well, no, we don't like the military. That means people, poor people have to go in the military to get an ID. We don't want that. We don't have to need that. So you can use a military ID. Now, just for the record, a military ID won't tell you if you are a legal citizen of South Carolina, but they're allowing you to use a military ID. So you could be a military person You can obtain a military ID, and well, that's just going a little bit overboard, I guess some people say. But you could be in Georgia and decide to vote in South Carolina with your military ID. But I don't think there are that many liberal military people. Or you can get this new form of free photo ID card obtained from a county election office. Free. From your county. Where you got to go to register to vote. You can get free ID. It's a free ID, but it ain't an Obama ID. Free ID. Now, the law provides a caveat known as the reasonable impediment provision that allows voters to cast a ballot after signing an affidavit that explains why they did not obtain an ID. So, even still, you can sign an affidavit explaining why you didn't get an ID. Because it's not an Obama ID. Now, Rick Hassan, an election law specialist at the law school of the University of California at Irvine, said the judge's ruling turned on how South Carolina officials have modified their interpretation of law in a way that is less onerous to voters. For example, the state officials said they would err on the side of voters who raise a reasonable impediment objection to obtaining an ID. What kind of legal impediment? What kind of reasonable impediment could there possibly be for it? Well, all right, you can say it this year. It is, ignorance. I don't know how you can say it's ignorance because anybody and everybody, I mean, they could plaster you. And you want to vote? Voter. I mean, they'll put it if you can get to, if you know where you're going to vote, I'm sure that you're going to know that you're going to need ID. So what are they going to do in 2014 in midterm elections? And people decide to show up in South Carolina. Well, I didn't know I need no ID. Well, you needed one since the last presidential election 2 years ago. Well, ain't nobody told me. That's going to happen. And then somebody's going to sue. And the judge is going to say, yes, they were disenfranchised because they didn't know. Whatever happened to the portion of the law that ignorance is no excuse for not following the law? Hey, if you don't know what's happened, driver's license, and divorce stuff cases that I had about a decade ago now, I had a very friendly county sheriff deputy. He said, sir, your license is suspended. And I said, why? And come to dig and find out is because of some stupid biddy from Human Services. Because I didn't notify that department. Forget that my wife already knew. The state knew because they were taking the money out of my child support. Because this is how they do it. There's no longer alimony, basically, in New Hampshire. But child support is basically alimony as long as the kids are young enough in this state. So the state wants to make sure that the woman, rare case is a man, but the woman gets her money. So they take it out of your check. Your employer pays the state, and the state then in turn sends a check to your ex-spouse for child support. But I failed to tell the department, even though the state had the information was taken out. So instead of contacting me, she puts out a suspension notice. I think they've changed that a little bit because those women because it's all women in that department. They're getting a little bit testy with their power. And so a state or a county deputy says, yeah, I had to go to your home, but you weren't home. And then I see you're here because I was working, obviously. And he looked at me and says, do you realize that your license is suspended? I looked at him and said, say what? I said, no, any issues with my license since the divorce, I've made sure was cleared up. He goes, and this guy he was really cool. Young guy, actually a newlywed. He said, I fully understand, which is why I'm not going to do anything. I'm just telling you that there's a suspension order on it, and it probably has to do with whatever. So I went to the DMV to find out what. They know exactly why. They told me why. I called this woman. I said, look, you guys what do you want from me? She says, well, you didn't notify this department. I said, well, I notified somebody because they're taking it out of my check. Well, I didn't know that. Well, all you had to do was ask. If there was some confusion. So I know that people, and I said, well, and I asked the deputy, I said, well, what happens if I was, driving around on the state highway someplace or something, and I didn't know? They go, well, really, ignorance is no excuse of the law. I mean, that's the law. Ignorance is no excuse for not obeying the law. So I said, wow. So I could honestly not know a thing and still get in trouble. He goes, yep. And he says, it happens a lot in divorce cases. That's why I'm telling you. So I'm like, well, isn't that nice? So I could have gotten a jerk for a cop. But yeah, I got to clear it up within 24 hours. But so ignorance is, so you need that. You need ID. So not knowing you need ID is not an excuse not to get an ID. Plain and simple. The state of South Carolina bent over backwards for this to make it real easy for people to still be able to vote. Well, this is the way it should be all over the country. All 50 states should have some sort of law, some sort of voter ID law. All of them should have it. There's no reason. I mean, you got to have ID for everything, so there's no reason not to have any. None. But, they'll always find a reason to try to find a way. Well, the left will always find a reason to try and cheat. Well, they lie. Why wouldn't they try and cheat if they're just so willing to blatantly lie? Why wouldn't they blatantly try to cheat? Speaking of cheating, but it's really not cheating. There is money that has been raised and spent so far in this campaign. Obama so far has raised $779 million. Mitt Romney has raised $784 million. Obama so far has spent $612 million. And Romney has spent only $534 million. Now, I remember them talking about how much Romney was spending. Romney's going to spend, he's been spending so much money. Well, it looks like he's been outspent by Obama by some $75 million. A lot of money. I can tell. Look, I don't watch TV a lot. But I can tell you, I have seen way many more Obama commercials everywhere, on TV, on YouTube. I mean, you want to talk about it. There's nothing more annoying when you're trying to watch a clip or something on YouTube, and up pops a political ad that you cannot skip. And it's usually an Obama ad. And you can't skip it. Well, I've tried. There's no button on there to skip. Quieter, I'll make you leave. You can't skip them.